and welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop. I'm your host Jen, and I'm very excited to talk about today's episode. But before we begin, there will be spoilers as we talk about major events that unfold within the story. In addition, each episode will have a list of trigger warnings in the description. Be sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast, and show your support on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. And welcome back to another episode of The Book Stop, and today we are joined with Patrick.
Hello, everybody.
What book did you bring, and why did you bring it?
I brought Jade City by Fonda Lee. I wanted to pick something very different from what I've brought before. I brought some kind of gross horror books before, so I picked some fantasy.
Yeah.
Something a little different.
Yeah, a little different than some spooky books. Right out the gate, we are going to play a little game. So you are going to summarize this book in 30 seconds. And you may begin whenever you're ready.
An island that is run by several families and clans that have powers that are imbued by their possession of jade. It goes through a kind of mafia-like style territory war until war breaks out.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of sadly sums it up pretty well. Because there's not a lot that goes on in this book. But I'm going to summarize it for anybody who hasn't heard of Jade City. The Call family is one of the two clans that control the land of Kekon. It's the only place in the world that produces rare magical jade, which grants those with the right training and the heritage superhuman abilities. The Greenbone clans of honorable jade-wearing warriors once protected the island from foreign invasion. But nowadays, in a bustling post-war advancements of fast cars and foreign money, Greenbone families, like the Calls, are primarily involved in commerce, construction, and the everyday upkeep of their district under their protection. When the simmering tension between the Calls and their greatest rivals erupts into open violence on the street, the outcome of this clan war will determine the fate of all the Greenbones and the future of Kekon itself. So what quote did you bring from this one would you say is probably one of your favorites?
I brought 2 quotes, actually. Is that all right?
Yeah, I brought 5. So,
5, okay.
So you're good.
One of my favorite quotes is, "She'd been a fool, but sadly even fools are entitled to their pride." I just really like the way that was worded. A lot of the lines and dialogue and descriptions in this book are very well written, and I just really like the way that one was written. She
has a funny way of, the people that you don't expect to have an opinion, really, or any kind of honor, and then brings them into the story, and you get to see their reactions to things, and you don't expect them to really matter, and in the end they are Biro. Oh my god, I'm gonna butcher the names, I apologize.
Yeah.
When they introduced Biro, I did not expect him to be in the story that long and to have such a significant part in the story.
Like a petty thief in the beginning, and
ends
up being a very large part of the story.
Yeah, and again, we do cover a large part of the books on this podcast, so we are going to spoil a lot of things. So if you haven't read it and want to, I would avoid listening to this episode and coming back after you finish. Yeah, that's a great quote. One of my favorite quotes I have is Hilo, which is one of our main characters, is talking to the Chancellor Soon. He says, "So what the big dog decides is what matters. All the little dogs will follow. People are people, whether they're lantern men's or fists, jaded or not. They'll run when they lose hope, but they'll put up with any hardships if they think they can come up on top at the end." Yeah, I just really like this one because it's showing how hope, inevitable possibility of the future, the unknown, people will do whatever they can to get through, and sometimes that's doing really stupid and courageous things just to make sure that at the end you are still standing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like that quote a lot too.
What other quote did you bring?
When Shay goes and retrieves her jade from the bank, says, "It had been a long time since she'd worn jade, and that she felt the rush coming like the wave of tsunami looming before it engulfs the beach. She did not tense or cringe from it. She raced alongside and let it sweep her up in its exonerable path. She rode it high, let it carry her simultaneously above her own body and more deeply inside it. She was inside the storm. She was the storm."
Oh, yes. That's a great way to describe Shay. And I think that in the next ones, too, that she's going to have an even more impactful position in her in the story. She is the storm. And, and then her being also the weatherman and having to, like, read the clouds and stuff.
Right.
It just all connects.
It really does, yeah. I also like how it's saying, like, she's racing alongside it, and it also kind of mirrors how she is with not just Jade, but joining the family's business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about Shay later because I adore her. But so I have like a couple like little quotes that I noticed throughout that I thought was impactful impression on the reader. So one of them is at the very beginning of the story when you don't really know what's going on. Jade makes you somebody. And I read that and I was like, interesting, because we don't know anything about Jade yet. I think we're just starting to get kind of the grasp of it. And even, let's be honest, this book doesn't really go into heavy detail about the Jade. So you never really get the whole thing about it until like halfway through the book. But the beginning, it was a good, impactful line to just be like, okay, here's the setup of, it doesn't matter who you are. If you got Jade, you matter.
Yeah.
And the other line that I had that kind of tied on with this was a little bit farther in the book. Lan was talking to, I believe, his dad when he was younger. And they were talking about how somebody in a position of power, let's say a king, for example, can't have Jade. And the line was, a man who wears the crown of a king can't wear the jade of a warrior. Gold and jade never together. And I really like that chapter all together because it talked about a little history of the jade itself, and I like that they made a decision in this world to keep the two apart, showing that like power with the jade and then respect of the king is the same, but they're not identical. They don't consider them the same thing.
Yeah, I like that too. I actually have another quote that was similar in the same vein that kind of ties into both of those, which is like automobiles and firearms, jade was not something the elderly should possess.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, that's interesting.
It is really interesting, yeah.
I did not notice that line. Awesome, that was a great quote. So, what would you say is some things that you liked about this book?
I really liked the characters. I thought that the characters were all very well written, very well developed. They all got a very big arc and change, and they all had their own flaws. Things that really made them who they were. Like, I could picture all of the characters so vividly.
That was one of my likes as well. It was interesting because there was no real, like, quote-unquote good guy. There was, like, protagonist, and there's a clear antagonist, but no one was good. Everyone was morally gray. You saw Hilo and sometimes Shay and all of them kind of make bad decisions, and some of them weren't honorable, I guess, decisions. I like that we get to see the characters, even like the secondary characters are fleshed out, like the brothers and Wen.
Oh, the makes.
Yeah, the makes. They're all like fleshed out, get a lot of like the mom and stuff. So even like the dad, family structure, we really got to see. So I really like that we get the background of those secondary characters as well. And I really like the relationship that you build with the characters, with the readers. It's very laid out of, you're going to figure this out as I tell this story. I'm not going to straight up tell you.
Right, yeah.
I like that you get to watch everyone's kind of opinion of each other branch out as, like, let's say, for example, Hilo and Shay. You get to learn about their history as time goes on. And not everything's just, like, point blank, like, hey, she hates him, she likes him, all that. It's laid out really well. I liked that the POVs were a nice shift. And I like that even between chapters, we were switching POVs.
Yeah.
It wasn't just stuck on one person. I don't think that the story could have been told if we were just following, obviously, Lan. We wouldn't be able to get through most of the story without with him. But we weren't stuck with just one character, but we also got to shift to other characters and learn about them.
I did like that. It really fleshed out the world as well when you do that, because it jumps from character to character who are in different parts of the city. Even like Andon, you get to see the precursor to the life of like a Greenbone. You get to see like the academy life and like how they're trained, which is really interesting and really well written world building.
Absolutely. I like that it isn't like chapter 15 Andon, just straight shifts narrative, and I really like that. The other thing I really liked was the history in here. It's just so broad, in depth, and well thought out, whether that be the history with the jade itself. I think there was enough history of it. I just wasn't enough explaining how to use it. And I really love the history of like the religion in this as well, and the people in it. It's just, if you like history and like politics, mob bossing, you'll really love this.
things I didn't like. It was very slow. Not a lot happened until the very end, which I'm sure it picks up in the other books of the series, but for a first book of the series, it didn't really make me want to read the rest of them. I wish there was a little bit more explanation on the Jade. It's the most interesting thing.
It's literally called Jade City.
It's Jade City. It's the most interesting thing about the book, in my opinion, and it's what it is and like how it's used is barely explained.
It's very confusing at first to really understand what it is, because jade is like literally jade stones. Like I was thinking maybe it was like a drug they crushed down and enhance their body that way, but it's like actual jewels and like earrings and jewelry and belts, and like they wear it on their body.
Right, yeah.
So that was a bit confusing at first. And that was like one of my dislikes, is that high fantasy, I get that you have to slow build into it, and this book definitely helps with the slow build, because it is pretty slow, but I feel like it doesn't really fix anything until like halfway through, when we get the chapter where Lon and Andon are fighting, and he's like, you need to be prepared. And that's when he finds out that he's on the Shine, or whatever it's called, SN1? SN1, yeah.
SN1.
That's when we really get to see the Jade in action.
Yeah, they were throwing around, when Lon and Andon were training, they were throwing around all these terms and like powers, like channeling and deflection. And I didn't know what they were.
Yeah, they didn't explain it. I think I need to be put in the academy for a little bit. Like, we should have followed Andon around a little bit more.
I think so.
Like, maybe we watch him go to class and they're doing, like, a recap or something. I think that would have been a smart way to put it in. Played off as, like, okay, I'm trying to explain it to you, but I don't want to just sit you down and tell you.
Yeah.
I felt like the names of the places were a bit lazy. Let me give you an example. The Armpit. Every time they said it, I hated it so much. Like, I get it. Okay, I, have a world that we play D&D in, and making up names is not easy, especially if you want it to be, like, meaningful. But some of these were just not great. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the pacing of this book. I found it very interesting that we start the book thrown right into the politics of it all and not really know what's going on between No Peak Clan and the Mountain Clan. Having to figure it out on the way was fine. Like, I don't mind. It was almost like a puzzle and put it all together.
Right, yeah.
But I felt like the pacing was interesting because they didn't do much world building in this one.
It feels like they threw us into a world that was already built and didn't really build up. We were supposed to figure it out ourselves, which can be effective, but I felt like I was just thrown like a fish out of water, and I really didn't know anything that was happening.
Like, I get that for like a second or third book of this in the series. I have explored the world in the first book and know a little bit more. I heard that in the second book is a little bit more world building, and you're in the city a lot more. So I'm hoping that if I were to ever finish this book series, you get to see a little bit more of Hilo kind of taking to the streets, or Shay taking to the streets, and being able to see advancement from the post-war and seeing like more people that are, and like the whole island itself. We really didn't get to explore the island itself.
Yeah, and there's all of the other territories around the Hispanian. You don't really get to see anything of the outside world.
Yeah, exactly. The pacing, again, is very weird because it's not that it's slow in the beginning. It's just that there's not enough of a pull. I think I got about 150 pages in, 200 pages in, is when I kind of like, okay, we're finally doing something where the book is advancing more than just the kind of the outskirts of what's going on.
Right.
And there was more action in it, and it started to pick up, and then it immediately fell back down. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I was at that point too. It was like I was just like walking through mud for a long time, and then oh, here's like a big thing that's happening. It's going to make everything skyrocket toward the end, and like a very fast-paced, action-packed adventure, and it kind of just immediately plummeted.
Yeah, and I think some of the chapters pulled away. Specifically, there's a chapter, chapter 50, if anyone's reading along, that I was reading it, and I was sitting there, and I was like, why are we talking about this? Almost to the end of the book. I think there's like 57 chapters, so we're almost at the end of the book, and we're talking about Hilo in the academy and how he's beating up people, and that's how he met like the brothers. But it felt too late in the story to introduce such a random backstory. Get that it's supposed to indicate him fighting Gaunt at the end, and killing him.
Yeah.
I think if they would have pulled it back a little bit more in the beginning of the story, even the middle of the story, then we could have just connected it to the end later.
I haven't a good enough memory
Yeah.
to read and do that. Yeah. I feel like it very much took me out.
I feel bad saying this, but I was reading this book and I fell asleep a couple times. I've never fallen asleep during a book, ever.
Yeah.
And maybe I was just super tired those 6 times that I fell asleep, but I was sitting there and I was like, my eyes are closing and I can't help it. And I'm not hating the book at all. The book was wonderfully written.
Right.
Her writing style is amazing and the fight scenes were interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you. Yeah. This was my first time reading it also, and just, I don't know.
I feel bad because it was really good.
No, it's very, there's a lot about it that's really good.
Yeah.
There's just a few things that are just...
Not that it would went around in circles or anything. It was always straightforward. I feel like the delivery of some of the information was just okay, I really like when Shay went to the financial district and became the CEO or whatever and was firing all these people. I was like, I get it. I understand why we need to know that, but I don't think we need a 4-chapter description of you talking to all these people. But again, that is the political side of this, and that's what she wants to tell in her story. Go for it.
Yeah.
So who would you say in this one is your favorite character?
Shay's my favorite character. She's probably the best, well fleshed out character. And she goes through the most change. Yeah, which I really enjoyed. To see her whole journey and struggle with trying to avoid rejoining all of the drama and politics of the family, and then finally having to give in with Lon's death.
Yeah, exactly. I also really like Shay. I picked 2 favorite characters because I also really like Andon as well. I just don't think we got enough in Andon, but I have a feeling that Andon's going to be a huge part in the next one. And when we get to what happens next, I have a whole plot line for Andon that I really hope happens, but I feel like it's not going to. So, yeah, I really like Shay. I liked her pull back and forth, kind of pulling in with your tsunami or hurricane. The storm. Pull back and forth between the clan. She's wanting to be independent and not have to call upon her family name when she comes back from her 2-year... It wasn't really an exile, but it kind of felt like it. It was like a self-exile. She left on her own, and then after her husband, were they married? Boyfriend?
It was... I think it was boyfriend.
Broke up with her, came back, and yeah, she tried to be independent. She got her own place, got a job, her independency. And then when she came back as the weatherman, she was so important to that plotline because I don't see how Hilo could have done it by himself and had anybody else be the weatherman.
Sure.
They have a really bad relationship, but it's starting to fix itself over Lon's death, which is... sucks, but... And when she had her meeting with the Pillar of the Mountains. When she had her conversation with 8, talking about how 8 is giving a little bit about her history of being a pillar. She is talking about how, she killed all of her family, so that way she could be the pillar. And I'm like, respect, okay? I know, just kidding. No, I really like 8. When she had her conversation with 8, and 8's like, you know what? You should be the pillar. You should get rid of your brothers, become this. And for a second there, I was like, Shay could do it. Shay could be the pillar. Shay's like, no, I'm not going to turn my back on my brothers. That's my family. She's extremely loyal. Yeah, I just really like her.
Yeah.
And then Andon, I really like. He was the youngest. I was very shocked about his decision at the end, which, again, we're going to talk about in a second. Yeah, I really like him. So, Lon is interesting. So, Lon is the pillar. And I know we keep saying, pillars and fists and fingers and stuff. And I know it's kind of confusing if you haven't read the book. And honestly, I'm still a little confused when I talk about it. But I have a quote here that actually kind of describes how the clan is broken down. The clan is like a body. The lantern men are the skin and muscles. The fist and the luck bringers are the heart and lungs. But the pillar is the spine. There can be no weakness in the spine or the body cannot stand. It cannot fight. They make all the decisions, and they are known for being very... Diplomatic. And what Lan is he was called a peace pillar, the pillar that's right after a war, and his job is literally to keep the peace. Every time anybody kills somebody a greenbone that has jade, they get to take the jade as their own. And the more that they take the jade, the more imposed they get by it, and more they get struck by their magic from it. Inevitably leads to Lan's death. I was very surprised when Lan died. I was very impressed that she did it, but I was surprised. I was like, oh no, he's gonna get right back up. He's gonna get out of that water. He's gonna be swimming. He's gonna be fine. And then we find out next chapter that he's not fine. He did not make it. And it had me question at the end. I was like, okay, is Hilo gonna die now? And then it's just Andon and Shay left.
Yeah, I was surprised too. You have this other character, Biro, who is like a jadeless person, and he just kills Lon. I mean, it's complicated how he kills Lon also, but it's like with a gun. Part because he's like overdosing on the drug that he has to use now because he has too much jade. Which
it was very interesting for his character, Lon's character development, because he was so cautious, I felt like, as a person. And then to him have to put his pride above everything. And it was honor that really made him carry that jade. And then he kept it too long, and then it infected him, and he started to kind of get those...
The itches?
I was thinking of, like, not withdrawals, but, like, addiction, I guess.
Sure.
He was getting, like, an addiction to it. And inevitably left to his demise. But very impressed with it. And then with Barrow being so persistent on... I think he's going to be a big part in the next book. So persistent on getting these jade. Because he's the beginning of the story, and he's the end of the story.
Yeah.
With him literally digging up the grave of...
Yeah, and he's stockpiling the SN1.
So yeah.
He's going to be a big part.
We'll talk about the ending in a second, but oh my god, it was a lot. So I just want to take a second here to shout out the Patreon subscribers.
Patreon shout out. We have Nick W., Ashley A., Bree P., Tim M., and Lulu.
Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. It means the world to me, and I enjoy doing this, and I'm glad that some people are listening, supporting it. So if you guys want to be part of the Patreon shout out, head over to Patreon and subscribe today. Who would you say in this one is your favorite relationship?
I had a hard time picking a favorite relationship. I really like the relationship that Andon has with the whole family. Coming from his orphan background, and they kind of like adopt him as their own, really treat him like family. He has I think he has struggles accepting that they accept him, which is a really interesting dynamic.
A lot of the stuff we're talking about on the podcast, we're kind of just scraping the surface of it. Andon, such an interesting character. I think he doesn't accept it because of how he was brought up and his mother. So his mother died from the itches. It leads to his character arc a lot, especially at the end. And his relationship with the family was interesting for sure.
Right, yeah.
My favorite relationship, so I really liked the four siblings together. I really would have loved a scene with all four of them. I don't think there was ever a scene where all four of them were there, which now I'm thinking about is kind of weird. It's always been Shay with Lon, Andon with Hilo. It was never all four of them together. We got to see each one interact, but we never got to see them all together. But the relationship was very realistic to being siblings.
Yeah.
They were loyal to each other. There was the kindness, but there was also that pettiness that siblings have. All polar opposite of each other as well. Andy was a little bit different with his upbringing, but the others were all kind of brought up the same. But I also really like Andy and Hilo, especially at the end and leading into the next books. I think it's going to be really important. That ending scene really solidified it for me. And we get to understand why Hilo treats Andy that way, why he's so protective of him, and then it just kind of comes back and backstabs him. So I really like that.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. Again, we talked about Jade being powered. So how would you wear your Jade if you had Jade yourself?
I would wear it, I think, in rings. And
oh my god, you punch somebody and just knocks them straight through the wall.
And as a glasses wearer, I would think I'd get it in the frame of my glasses.
or you get it in the glass itself, so you just see through green.
Or, yeah. Or on contact lenses, and I just have green eyes.
Ow! That would be cool. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool how they wore the jade, flaunting it almost. Hilo, when he ripped his shirt open, and he had a huge thing of jade.
Right.
Because I would imagine that if it's something so valuable that they would want to hide it away. But no, they just flaunt it out for anybody, which makes them an open target.
It's also kind of a deterrent, though, because of how powerful it makes you. Having it wide on the open kind of gives attackers pause, I would say.
Unless you're that one guy.
That one guy.
Yeah, Burno.
Biro?
Biro.
Yeah.
Unless you're Biro. Yeah, so let's talk about the ending a little bit.
Sure.
So I thought the ending, starting from like when Hilo beats Gaunt in that battle,
Okay.
I was confused.
Me
I
too.
didn't really understand why Andy was there. Even after, I was still kind of confused. I thought it was way too easy.
Sure.
The fight was just too easy. Hilo was fighting 20 people by himself. But I just don't think there was enough to support the injuries that he had after.
I was also pretty confused. Felt fast. I think it happened way too fast and it was too easy for him, yeah.
Maybe it's setting up for the next book, and there's gonna be more, and it's literally called Jade War, so maybe there'll be more in there. But yeah, it was like, okay, we're here. I'm gonna beat these guys up. Andy gonna rip this jade off of him. I get that part because it explains the ending of Andy graduates from the academy and gets his jade stones. We see Andy push against it and be like, no, I don't want it. I don't want them. I don't want to become a weapon, which I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he went against tradition, fought back on that, and Hilo being so embarrassed by it.
Right.
But I really liked his mindset, and I think setting up the fight explained that more than him beating Gaunt. It was setting up more for Andy than that. But I feel like there just wasn't enough setup at the end for the next book. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this was just the end. If this was the only book in the series, I wouldn't be that shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wish there was a little bit more drive, I guess. I wish there was more urgency, is the word I'm looking for, yeah. Like with Duro escaping and Andy being shipped off to wherever he's going. I did like that it started and ended at the Twice Lucky.
Right, yeah.
They had a little dinner with Grandpa, and we see him kind of deteriorating. But with so much buildup, I expected it to be a little bit like a huge punch, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing toward the end that really gives you any sense of urgency or foreboding toward what's coming next is the letter that Duro left for Shay, telling her to leave. Don't tell anyone and just get out of there. It does have this like ominous tone to it, which kind of gives you some idea of the violence that's coming next, but again, not much.
The grave at the end where he's digging up the thing. I think it's interesting that Hilo doesn't really know what happened to his brother. Shay has an idea, Andy knows the most. With him burying his jades with him, which is like an honor thing that people do that. Mm-hmm. And then Barrow coming up and digging the jade stones because those are his.
They are his.
He earned them, kind of. And leading that into the next story, I want to know how it's going to connect. Mm-hmm. I feel like Hilo is going to suspect that maybe the mountain is going to be the ones that's taking the jade stones from the graves. And because I don't think that Barrow is on his radar at all. So I'm very interested to see how this secondary almost character coming in and being a driving force for the plot. I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to play a game?
Yes.
Alright, the game I have here is Jade Stone or Jade City. So our D&D campaign that I DM, you play a character in, is called Jade Stone. I pulled some cities from there and districts, I guess, from the book, and you're just going to say if it's Jade Stone or Jade City.
Okay.
Little Hammer.
That is Jade City.
Jade City. Braveston.
That's Jade Stone.
Yep. Akinport.
Jade Stone.
Yep. Dog's Head.
Jade City.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to make it very clear that I don't think my names are any better than Jade City, but when you have a place called Dog's Head for an advanced city, it could be a little bit more thought out.
Sure.
Maybe make some puns off Jade. I literally don't care. Haven Key.
Jade Stone.
Mm-hmm. The Shining Mountains.
Oh, that's Jade Stone.
Oh, yeah. Summer Park.
Jade City.
Mm-hmm. The Armpit.
Jade City.
Midgrounds Village.
Jade Stone.
The Docks.
Jade City?
Mm-hmm. Yay! I don't have a prize. Maybe I'll give you some temporary hit points or an inspiration die, but...
Okay.
Yeah, I got nothing for you. What would you say, in your own opinion, your own words, these are just, what you think, if you were writing this book, what are some things that you would have done differently?
I think I would have had at least one chapter, or even like a prologue, on Jade and what it means.
Yes.
I guess that's to the credit of the book that I do want to know,
mm-hmm.
and they may explain it in book 2, but I don't know if I want to go through that. Another missed opportunity, I think, carry the violence throughout in the end. The ramped up violence with Lon's death could have carried me with like suspense and tension toward the end, but it did.
Yeah. Speaking of Lon's death, I wish we didn't see how Lon died, that Burrow killed him. I wish there was more suspense on who did it, whether it be an inside job, was it the Mountain Clan that killed him, a more hidden character, kind of working through the shadows almost. Because us knowing as a reader, it takes all that suspense away. We know what happens, but no one else knows, which can kind of play a little bit of a mind game, because it's like, Hilo's reacting this way and thinking it's the Mountain Clan, but it's really not. And then the first thing that you said for the Jade stuff, I know they had the interludes in there, but it was more like raw history from like when it first was created, not modern, like what's going on with it. I wish there was more from the Mountain Clan. I wish we would have saw some POVs from them. I wish as a reader we were put in the middle. We saw a little bit of the No Peak and a little bit of the Mountain Clan, and then we get to decide what side we want to be on. Instead
of being forced to side with No Peak. Yeah,
exactly. And then when death started to happen, being like, oh, I really liked Gaunt from here because I got more backstory, and I really liked the land from here, chose a side to be on instead of being stuck in one position. I would have liked to see a little bit more of Shay starting her life out, because when she came back to Kekon, to the Jade City, she was kind of just stagnant. There wasn't anything for her. She had her apartment that she decorated, and she just got a job before she went, like, after Lon's death. But I wanted to see her with friends and starting that job, actually living a life that she had to pull back from. When they brought her in, it was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here until they call me, until I'm needed. So I wish we would have a little bit more development on her new life. A little nitpicky, but I wish they would call her Weather Woman instead of Weatherman. Like, I get it, the old generation.
Sure.
Not used to change, traditions, but I think it could have been Weatherman, or Weather Woman, and it would have been fine. Again, this is the first of a trilogy, so what are some predictions that you have in the next book?
I feel like there are 3 characters that were very minor in this book, that they kind of gave, like, hints toward them being more important. And I feel like those are going to be, that's at least my prediction, is that they're going to be more important, which are Barrow, who I feel like is going to become a huge threat with his newly acquired jade and stockpiled drug that makes him able to wear the jade and use it. I feel like Andy is going to be a big part.
Yeah.
Not really sure, because he's very conflicted within himself. And I feel like Wen is going to be a big part, because they make her kind of a spy for...
Ooh, yeah. We didn't talk about that, yeah.
She's also one of my favorite characters. Just like her development of becoming like, just like a side character, but then becoming very important, which is really cool. But I feel like her role as a spy is going to become very important too.
Yeah. I think Wen, like you said, is going to be very important with being Hilo's wife now. She's going to have more of an impact on the clan. And with her being a spy and like taking the lessons at the college and stuff, again, the secondary characters get so much, and I really like that. Because they could have just been like, oh, you know, she's the sister of the Mank brothers,
right.
But she's more than that.
There's also that scene with her and Shay talking about where she could be useful. She talks about where she thinks that Hilo would want her, but then she talks about where she could actually be useful. And it's those 2 women kind of almost undermining his power.
I love their relationship. I feel bad now because I did kind of forget. It was introduced like the end of the book. So, yeah, I think those 2 are going to be a power duo. And they're going to just demolish everyone. That would be amazing. I would love it. So, obviously, we're going to get more politics in the next one. It's about a war. I would love a little bit more combat, but I have a feeling that they're trying to strive for peace. So, I feel like a lot of it's going to be, again, like the negotiation, the talking. I think we're walking towards Grandpa dying. I think we're going to get a scene with his funeral. And I think there's going to be some conflict with his jade. Somebody's going to either, again, steal it, or people are going to fight over it in some way.
Did he give his jade to Duro?
I think he gave some of it. I think they're slowly taking it away, and then they left him with a couple pieces, and then he gave them to Duro, yeah. I think Hilo is going to have some kids, because they got to continue the hierarchy and stuff. My biggest one, Andy. Okay, so here's my predictions for Andy. And I have high hopes, but I feel like it's not going to happen. So following Ant's story, where she is the pillar of the Mountain Clan, and she killed all of her family, what if he did the same thing? What if he becomes the pillar, okay? And he goes evil. This is his, like, hierarchy of his family kind of disowning him. Because she was also adopted as well.
Right.
And it's kind of following the footsteps of that. Maybe he's ending the cycle, and maybe there could be an end to Jade. Like, maybe Jade gets banished from the land, and they don't mind it anymore. Like, I don't know. I'm probably thinking, like, huge scope here, but I think that'd be kind of cool to see. Jade at some point has to be impossible to find. And I feel like they have to have some sort of reason to fight. Like, I don't know. I don't really love the politics side of books, so I'm interested to see where it goes. But I would love if Andy became evil. I think that would be a good story. I also think Andy's going to get a love interest in the next book.
Sure.
All right, so we're kind of getting to a close here, but before we go, we do one last thing. We are going to a rating scale, and we do a little bit different here on the book stop. We make up our own thing. So I would give Jade City by Fonda Lee 2 lunch dates in a mob-infested restaurant out of 10. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's low, but how do I justify such a low thing? I think that's the lowest I've done on the podcast. I really enjoyed this book, don't get me wrong, but it was just so slow. I don't like books with politics in it. I get that they're important, and that's the driving force of this book, and that's totally fine. I personally just, I don't see myself finishing the rest of the series, which is kind of sad because I do love these characters, and maybe if it became a Netflix show or, HBO picked it up, I would watch it, but I just don't care.
Yeah. My rating would be 2 Jade necklaces out of 5. I also didn't really enjoy this book. I really enjoyed the writing style and the characters. Maybe I'll give Fonda Lee's other books a chance, but I don't see myself finishing this series as well.
Yeah, I think the second book is longer than this one, and there's a third one. I have no clue how she got that much out of this series.
There is another one, too. There's
another fourth one?
No, it's an unrelated book in the universe, I think. It's called The Jade Settler of John Loon.
Oh, I wonder if is it like a prequel? So it gives more history on things?
Could be.
That would be cool. Okay, maybe you gotta read that first to get the history of what's going on, and maybe this would make more sense. Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because I would love to finish this series, but I fell asleep so many times, and I feel bad because I never sleep during books, but I fell asleep so many times reading this.
I fell asleep listening to the audiobook, so I don't feel too bad.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on and bringing this book. We might not have loved it, but it was fun to talk about.
Yeah.
It was fun to meet these characters and see this short journey for them. Maybe if we wanted to pick up the series again, we could do another episode, but don't hold out your horses with that one. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I don't think we have anything scheduled for this year, but Patrick will probably be back.
Yeah.
Will you be back, Patrick?
Sure. I'll bring something more interesting.
No, this was fun.
This was interesting. I'll bring something that I've read before and that I know that I enjoy.
Okay.
So that I can talk about it with more passion.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll see you next time, and thank you again.
Bye.
Thank you for turning the pages with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support by leaving a review, sharing the episode, and following the podcast on Instagram at The Bookstop Podcast. Join us on Patreon for early access to episodes and other additional content. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too.